Tonight's movie is going to be The Other Woman. Yeah, it's the chick flick of the month, I think. It stars Cameron Diaz and a couple other people that I can't remember who they are. I know the girl from Knocked Up is in it. The girl who played the wife in Knocked Up, she's in it. And I like her. She's always really good. Cameron Diaz, I generally like. She's sometimes hit or miss. This movie looks kind of really dumb, but I want to go easy on it because I feel like a lot of times chick flicks are given a worse reputation and worse reviews than they typically really deserve. I mean, there are movies that do well at the box office and are sometimes really popular, especially with women, so they gotta do some stuff right? I don't know. I've seen the trailer a bunch of times. Pretty much with every movie that I've gone to the theater to see has shown the trailer for this one. I think they even showed it before Oculus, which was confusing because Oculus is a horror movie, and I don't think this is a horror movie. Maybe a horror movie, but not a horror movie. I don't know. It looks really dumb, but like I said, I want to give it a chance. I really want to give it a chance. We'll see. I'll see you after the movie. Let's get this out of the way. Alright, I just saw The Other Woman. And I didn't really like it. I didn't like it at all. There were parts of it that were kind of okay, but for the most part, this movie is a big, sloppy mess. And I mean a sloppy mess. It's edited terribly. Oh my god. The editing is so bad. Okay, so The Other Woman has Cameron Diaz, Mann, that's the name of the girl from the intro that I couldn't think of the name of, and Kate Upton are the three main girls. Are the 2.5 main girls. Kate Upton's barely in it. She has 20 lines. She's barely doing a job of acting. She's here as a model. She's barely doing any acting at all. Oh my god. She's barely in it. She barely has enough lines to make her a side character. She didn't have a character either, which I'm assuming is because she can't act worth a fart. Because she can't act worth a fart. But so The Other Woman stars Cameron Diaz and Mann and Kate Upton as three women who find out that they're all dating the same guy without realizing it, which is something that you've seen before. I don't know how often the plot line has been played out before that the three people who are dating the same guy, they end up as friends, good friends. But for what it's worth, that's kind of an interesting idea. It would have been nice to have that developed a little bit more in this movie. Oh my god, I gotta take a second to get my thoughts together, because this movie hurt. This movie was painful to sit through. The trailers didn't make it look very good, but the trailers didn't really... It didn't really advertise the movie that I just saw. it advertised a different movie than the one that I just saw. And the movie that the trailer advertised was like spliced into this movie in different places. That sounds confusing, and that's because it is, but essentially what I mean is, like, you know how in the trailer for this movie, you see Leslie Mann, they find out that they're all sleeping with the same guy, and Leslie Mann in the trailer feeds her husband, who's the guy, hormones, and he like starts growing big nipples, and his hair starts falling out because she puts hair remover in his shampoo, and even though they show that in the trailer, and that is in the movie, what they show in the movie of that is everything that you see in the trailer. And I'm not exaggerating at all. Everything you see about that plot line is in the trailer, and that's all you get of that in the movie. That's all you get of it. They mention it once when she actually does it. And then they mention it again in passing, like, oh, aren't you feeding him hormones? Oh, yeah, I am. Ha, ha, ha. And then that's all we see of that plot line in this movie. And that just kind of sums up the general feeling of what's wrong with this movie. Is that it was so horrendously unfocused that I had no idea what kind of film it was trying to be. Like, if it had just tried to be, I mean, obviously it is the stereotypical chick flick, but if it had just, like, stuck to the premise of getting back at this guy who did them wrong, shoot, that would have been fine. It would have been, it still would have been a painful movie, but crap, I could have sat through that for 2 hours or however long it was. I guess it was only like an hour and a half, but whatever. I could have sat through that, but they didn't do that. They had a bunch of other stuff that they were doing at the same time. It seemed like it was also trying to be the type of comedy, romantic comedy that Knocked Up was, where, yeah, it's a romantic comedy and it's raunchy and it's all this stuff, but Knocked Up, they also worked in a lot of, like, they discussed a lot of problems that relationships have and that people have. And a lot of stuff like that people go through when they're having a child, which a movie like Juno also did, but that's not the same type of movie that this is. So sometimes it felt like it was being that as well, but then they didn't follow through on that either. We had a couple of scenes of Leslie Mann crying. One time she was in a wedding dress and crying, but then they didn't follow up on it. So it felt like they were just dropping that plot line too. And there were, and then there were parts where it seemed like maybe it was going to be about Cameron Diaz, you know, getting over this guy who was sleeping around with other women, who was married and didn't tell her, and then she's gonna fall in love with this other guy, with Leslie Mann's brother. And they do that for maybe 3 scenes. Like, I think they had the brother, who's one of the best actors in the freaking movie, has like maybe 2 scenes before the very end with Cameron Diaz. Yeah, only 2 scenes. Only 2 scenes. Oh my god. Only 2 scenes. We're supposed to cheer for them getting together at the very end of the movie, and they only share 2 scenes in this movie together. Holy crap. No thought was put in this movie at all. This was just formulaic crap. Oh my god. Sorry, I just had a revelation of how formulaic this was. Like, everything that this movie was trying to do was just sell itself. It was whoring itself out to the female audience. And I'm sure that, I mean, shit, this movie has grossed more money right now than Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which, by the way, was a great movie. This movie's already passed that at the box office. And if I remember correctly, 75% of the audience that went to go see this movie, and I saw that tonight when I went to see this movie, 75% of the audience has been female. And I think of the 25% guys that went to see it, most of those guys were probably the gay friends tagging along. And I don't want to say that in any kind of offensive way. I just sat through this movie with a packed female audience, with the exception of, I counted them because it was a relatively small theater. There were 5 other guys in this movie theater. And without making any assumptions as to their sexuality, they were probably of the homosexual persuasion. I have a feeling that that's the case. You know what? No, they were flaming gay, okay? Those were the only other guys in the theater. No, that is a lie. There was a family that saw this movie together for some reason, which was really awkward when the sexual parts were going on. Please don't take your kids to see this movie. What the crap is wrong with you? Shit. So I think, yeah, this movie is selling itself to women in a way that I don't think is okay. Not because, I think this movie is misogynistic. You know, this isn't a movie like 27 Dresses or Twilight, which I thought were horribly misogynistic movies, in spite of, the fact that they were appealing to a female audience. I mean, this movie is trying to empower women, but it's doing it in a way that is specifically designed to just sell tickets. It's not doing it. This movie isn't empowering to women in a way that I think is justified. It's not empowering to women, other than, screw guys. These guys are this guy is terrible. Let's see how awesome it is to just mess with this one guy. And even that, if the movie had been that, like I said, I would have been more okay with it, but this movie wasn't trying to do that. It was doing that. It was also doing, the sisterhood movie. It was also doing the romantic comedy. It was also doing, the betrayal movie. They had, with Leslie Mann and her husband, they were going that storyline as well. This movie had no idea who it wanted to be because it was trying so hard to appeal to every woman audience that it could find. And because of that, it really just is a jumbled mess. I honestly think that that's not the screenwriter's problem. Normally, I would totally blame the screenwriter. This felt more like the producers found this guy's script, read it over, and was like, you know what? We're going to greenlight this movie. However, you got to put in more poop jokes. There's a dog shitting on a friggin' floor during this movie, and that was the one laugh that made a lot of people in the theater laugh. There's also a shit joke where the husband is fed laxatives and he's shitting in the freaking bathroom stall, and that got a laugh. And it's pretty obvious because those parts of the movie are so completely disjointed from the rest of the movie. They feel so out of place. And I think it's because the producer sat down with the writer and said, put in more poop jokes, make it appeal to more women. We gotta make it hip and cool. So you gotta do that. We gotta have a romantic interest for Cameron Diaz. You know, she can't just end up with no guy at the end of the movie. She has to end up with someone. So you gotta put him in. You gotta put in the brother. That's the only reason why it makes sense to me that so many parts of this movie include things that get either a minute of screen time. Kate Upton would also factor into that. Oh, we gotta give eye candy for the boyfriends who are gonna get dragged along. It's the only way that I can rationalize having so many different small plot points that are completely dropped, that there are so many things that are only mentioned one or two times and either never brought up again or only brought up at the very end. It's the only way I can rationalize the brother character being in this movie. It's the only way I can rationalize Kate Upton's character being... I would say cardboard cutout, but she wasn't even that much. Because if anything... Sorry, my camera slipped a little bit. If Kate Upton's character had been more of a cardboard cutout, she would have played more of the ditzy girl, and she didn't really play that. And it might just have to do with her acting, because she's not a very good actress at all. But there are only a couple jokes in the movie that play up the fact that, she's the ditzy girl. Other than that, you didn't really get that feeling from her. So, in short, the story and the screenplay were all over the freaking place. It was a mess. It was such a mess. And the editing didn't help at all, because the editing is god-awful. Really god-awful. Okay? The editing is total crap. If you know any film student friends that you want to go see this movie with, bring them along and ask them after the movie what they thought of the editing. Because I'm sure they'll say that they've seen worse, but they will probably also say, yeah, this editing was garbage. Because it was. So I've just been rambling a lot about the biggest issues of this movie, and the big issues are really big issues. I want to talk a little bit about the actors, because I did feel like, for the most part, they were trying. Leslie Mann, in particular, I could really tell was trying, but I wasn't sure sometimes if she was doing some of the things that she was doing because she was really putting forth an effort and she felt like it was truthful to the character, or if she was doing the things that she was doing because the director told her that it would be funny. Because there's a lot of stuff in this movie, a lot of jokes in this movie that are dragged out for a really long time, because I think the director saw movies like Knocked Up and was like, oh yeah, we can do that. Just, have a joke, keep going for a while, and let the actors improv a bit, because we got good actors, and yeah, they're good actors, but they usually have someone better to play off of. The main guy in this, whose name I couldn't remember the moment I read it off the screen. I looked it up after the movie, and I still couldn't remember it, and I can't remember it now. He's so bland and so forgettable, and he's terrible. And he doesn't really get terrible until the very end of the movie. He's freaking awful. He's not a good actor for them to play off. Cameron Diaz and Leslie Mann have done some really, really funny freaking work in movies before. There's Something About Mary with Cameron Diaz was fucking hilarious. Every scene she's in, she nails almost every joke she has. But in that movie, she's also working with a better director, and she's working with Ben Stiller. Who's Ben Stiller? And he's going to give you something to play off of. Regardless of what you think of Ben Stiller as an actor, he's going to give you something to play off of if you're an actor in a scene with him. You've seen that in almost every movie he's ever been in. No matter how good he is, he's giving you stuff to play off of. And Seth Rogen, again, regardless of how you feel about him, he's giving you stuff to play off of. And his comedic timing with Leslie Mann and Knocked Up, even though they didn't share a whole lot of screen time, was perfect. This guy was awful, and he had no real... I don't want to say he didn't have any acting talent, because I don't know if that would be a truthful thing to say, but he didn't have very much comedic talent from what I could see at all. If his role had been taken over by a guy with comedic instincts, like comedic timing, like if this had been played by a young Bill Murray, holy crap, would this be a different movie? Jesus Christ, this would be a completely different fucking movie if Bill Murray was the guy who was the husband that was sleeping around, or if even Seth Rogen. But maybe neither one of those are like the suave, handsome guys that would fit the role. I don't know. But the actors had nothing. They had less to work off of than was necessary to make these jokes work, because the jokes were terrible. Then less enough to work off of to make the scenes feel developed at all, or cohesive, or sometimes anything but just plain confusing. And again, I could tell that they were trying. They just didn't have anything to try with. They didn't have anything to go off of. And the movie as a whole is just really, really painful. And with all that being said, I have to acknowledge the fact that this movie is making a lot of money at the box office right now. And I could say, oh, people are dumb for going to see this movie, but I wouldn't say that, and I don't want to be the person who says that, and I don't even think that. I don't think people are dumb for wanting to see this movie. A lot of people are seeing it. A lot of people are really liking it. I talked to a girl from work today who had seen the movie, and she absolutely adored it. And a lot of the people, even though the people in the audience were hardly ever laughing at this movie, to be perfectly honest, when I got out of the theater, I could tell that they had had a good time. Maybe not the best time, but I could tell that they had definitely enjoyed it. And that's because I think at the end of the movie, during the last, 10 minutes or so, when, spoiler, when all three women, even though you can see this coming, so I'm not really going to count it as a spoiler. When all three women are seated in the same room with the bad guy husband at the end of the movie, it does feel somewhat satisfactory to finally, after sitting through this whole ugly movie, to be able to look this guy in the face and say, you're a piece of shit. Because he is a piece of shit. And it did feel good to finally get that out. They didn't do very well with that scene, and the guy, if he had been a better actor, he might have made it work, but since he's a lousy actor, it just starts to get really stupid. But that sense of being able to say, yeah, we got you, you scumbag, yeah, that's what people who are going to see this movie are looking for, and they're gonna find it. I think this movie could have done it a lot better, a lot freaking better, but this movie does have it. So if you're going to see this movie for that reason, if you're a girl and you want to see the movie for that, pointing to the guy and saying, this guy's a scumbag, he represents every other scumbag I've ever had in my life, who's cheated on me, who's treated me like I'm worthless, who's treated me like he doesn't respect me, you'll get a sense of, you'll get a good sense of feeling accomplished, of feeling like you earned this moment. You will like that feeling, and you'll get that feeling from this movie more so than I did, definitely, because I mean, barely got that feeling at all. But yeah, if you want to drag your boyfriend to see it, my advice would be to take him to the theater and tell him to go see Captain America, the Winter Soldier again. Because I think he would have a better time than sitting through this garbage. This movie is junk. It's a junk movie. It's junk food for the brain. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it. And if you think that like I was overly harsh to your chick flick, I'm really sorry. However, if you would like to see me rant about a dude flick, Brick Mansions is out also, and I know I will be seeing that one probably tomorrow. And based on the fact that its reviews are no better than the reviews for The Other Woman, yeah, I will probably be just as worked up about Brick Mansions as this movie. Because hey, just because you're trying to appeal yourself to one audience doesn't mean you can get away with some bullcrap. Alright, so if you do decide to go see The Other Woman, just have a good time. And I hope you do. I sincerely hope you do. Have a good time at the movies. I'll see you later.